created by Cable for Canadians.
Hi, welcome to Beyond Politics. I'm Catherine Clark. Nova Scotia Conservative MP Scott Armstrong was in his first political campaign almost 4 decades ago. He was 6 years old. It was 1972, and he was campaigning for Robert Stanfield. He's moved on a little bit from then. He became an elementary school principal. He just got engaged, and he joins me now to talk all about his life beyond politics. Scott Armstrong, welcome to Beyond Politics. It's really great to have you here.
Thank you, Catherine. I'm pleased to be here.
Well, you're kind of almost a rookie on the Hill, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely. I was elected last November 9th in the by-election, so and then we were prorogued, of course. So I haven't been here that long, and I really enjoy it.
Well, tell me what that was like. So you get elected, you fought long and hard, and there you are finally, and then it's prorogued. How did that feel?
Well, what was good about it was it enabled me to go around my riding, and I was able to meet with every municipal leader and their staff, because as a candidate, it's difficult to do that. I basically went from being a school principal to being a candidate in the space of a day. That enabled me to learn a lot about every small community. My riding is a very big rural riding. I have lots of small communities. I knew them from an educational perspective and from someone that grew up and lived there, but to learn about their needs and wants and wishes that were promoted by their local municipal leaders was pretty enlightening. And with the economic action plan, the stimulus plan, they're asking for requests and proposals from municipalities, that enabled me to meet every single mayor, every single CAO, and we were able to work together strongly when we got back to Parliament. So for me, as a new politician, the program was very advantageous.
Tell me about the fact that you went from being a principal to a candidate in a day. How did that happen?
Well, I was able to win the nomination of our party by acclamation, so there wasn't a long, drawn-out convention or anything like that. So I left school one day, and then 5 days later I was a candidate. I kept my position as principal right till the campaign started in September. But at that point, I was sort of carrying both legs. So I spent most of my summer touring around being a candidate.
Right.
And to go from June 30th as a principal to July 1st as a candidate, that was a big swing in my life, I can tell you that.
What about the little kids? All the little kids that were in your school, how did they react when they knew that you were going to be a candidate?
Well, during the campaign, there was actually a movement by several of them to tear my campaign signs down because, of course, they wanted to keep me as principal. That was.
Is that really why you think they did it?
Well, I hope so. No, which was kind of endearing. They were bothering their parents, don't vote for me. So I felt a lot of support from the students in my school. Of course, I mean, a school principal at the elementary level, you're kind of like a rock star in the building. My elementary school was over 600 students at the time, so I had a fairly big elementary school in Truro. And we had actually just opened the building shortly before that, so I was the first principal of the school. So they kind of looked at that campaign as someone trying to take something away from them. So it helped me in the end.
I guess so, but you go from being the rock star in the building to being just another one of the 308 MPs on the Hill, and you're a little fish in a big pond. Did you know that that's what you were getting into? Well,
I had worked for Bill Casey for years. I was his campaign manager in several campaigns. And
who was the MP in the riding before you?
He was the MP in the riding before me. Right. He's been there off and on since 1988, and I helped his campaign in 1988 when he was first elected.
Did you?
So I also had worked for several MLAs in the legislature in Nova Scotia. So I knew what I was getting into. I knew the time constraints. I knew the time commitment you have to make away from your family. And I also knew, as a new elected MP in the middle of a sitting, I had a very uphill battle.
Right. Were you sad to leave the kids, though?
Absolutely. I missed the children, and I missed my staff, for sure.
I bet.
I'd worked in this very small school in Tatamagouche for 10 years. I'd left them a year before, so I knew what it was like to leave a building and leave the staff. But opening a new building in Truro, we had worked very hard as a staff to establish a culture in that school, and to leave them soon after open was kind of disappointing. But the one thing I do miss is the children, particularly the primaries. I love going down to see the 5- and 4-year-olds. We have 4-year-olds in school in Nova Scotia now, and no matter how stressful your day seems, they will always brighten it.
Now, do you go back to the school? Do you have the chance ever to talk in the school? And
well,
are you visiting?
I've been back a couple of times. I was back just before the school opened this year to see the staff and the new principal and transfer some files.
You haven't seen the kids yet?
But I try not to step on the new principal's toes by going back. So I do see them around town in the grocery stores and the playgrounds at sporting events, and it's quite rewarding when they come up and say we miss you, or hopefully they're being genuine when they say that.
They are.
But,
kids are always genuine.
genuine.
That's one thing you can count on, good or bad.
So that's a very rewarding part of my job, is I do get to see the children come up to me in different events, and it's always an enjoyable experience.
What were you like as a kid?
Actually, I didn't have too many problems in school. I tended to get along with others well. I don't have much of a temper, so I did fairly well academically, and it was always a positive experience for me. My mother had been a teacher. My father was a small businessman.
Was your mom teaching you?
My mom, she taught me a couple of days as a substitute. As soon as my mother had 4 children in 3.5 years.
Wow.
At that time, she became a stay-at-home mom. I have younger twin sisters. So she, as soon as we all got to the school level, she substituted a bit. So I did experience her as a sub for a couple of days. That wasn't the most enjoyable experience.
No, I can't imagine.
my friends use that against me to this day, I think.
Did your siblings have her as a teacher?
They never had her as a teacher, and to tell you the truth, I don't know if they ever had her as a substitute either.
You know what? That's probably for the better. I think it would be so awkward to be in a room full of your peers being taught by your parents. Some kids and parents do it a lot. I mean, but I would find it awkward. Yeah, it
was probably more challenging for someone that had to teach a whole year at the elementary level.
Yeah.
And I've talked to, I've had teachers with children in the school rather than principal, and it's a big challenge. They would rather not have their child in class if you can arrange it schedule-wise to avoid it.
Sure, absolutely. So you're this kid who's obviously pretty good academically. You're an athlete, all these good round things. Did you have a sense of what you were going to be when you grew up?
Well, I went to Acadia University, where I really enjoyed my time there, and it was.
Does that mean that you were a typical kid going to school for 4 years?
Probably.
Yeah.
Leaving home for the first time at 18 years old.
You enjoyed the school aspect and the after-school activities?
Absolutely, I did. I think I had a robust experience while I was at Acadia, I'll put it that way. Peter McKay was there at the same time I was.
Right.
So I've known Peter for years, and we experienced some time together at the university.
Good that you can remember it.
Yeah, I can remember every bit of it. But the university experience, what it did show me was that to leave your home, be on your own, learn how to take care of yourself. That those are needed skills, and I encourage all of my students to once they leave high school to go on to some sort of post-secondary experience, whether it be a community college, whether it be learning a trade, which is very necessary now, or whether it be at the university level. I think having that experience, that sort of transition to going right to work, I think is a very valuable time in any young adult's life.
Right. Do you remember any burning passions as a kid? I mean, was there anything that you were really
Athletics
really?
For sure would have been one. I played all the sports, baseball, basketball, football. Football is a really big sport in my hometown.
Yeah.
And politics. I was someone that got into politics at a very young level. My family is always involved. So those would probably be the 2 fields where I felt the most attraction to, and consequently, I'm kind of involved in both of them to this day.
So, did you ever think of a professional career in sports?
Oh, everybody grows up thinking they want to be in the NHL or the NFL or the NBA,
Fair enough.
But at 5'9.5", a lot of that wasn't going to be possible. So I had a realistic vision of my talent as I grew up. I was never the superstar player. I was always good enough usually to make the team and get to play, but I was never the star that would consider going to the pro level. I thought the best I could ever do would be to make maybe a small college team or something like that. But I really enjoy being on a team. I enjoy being an effective member of a team. And again, in politics, that transfers very well because political parties are a team, and all caucuses also work as a team. So those are skills that you can use in many facets of life.
Were you a political kid? You talked about working on Bill's campaign in '88. Were you one of those kids who was just right in there with the
I started my first door-to-door campaign at the age of 6.
Why? How did that happen?
Well, I'm from Truro, which is Robert Stanfield's hometown.
Yeah, that's right.
And my grandfather and my father were very active political workers for the Stanfield organization in my hometown. So in that campaign, my dad took me around door-to-door dropping off leaflets for Robert Stanfield, and it was the pole where actually Robert Stanfield had lived. and it was a really rewarding experience. So I've had a robust, long experience in politics, and I don't remember much of that campaign, but I've been involved in every campaign since then.
Do you remember how well the poll did?
We won our poll.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Do you remember liking your first experience doing political stuff, or did you just feel like you were being...
Well, I remember going to speeches. Bob Coates was my member of Parliament for most of my young life, and I can remember going to speeches where Bob Coates was speaking. And even when I was younger, I didn't understand all the policy and different aspects he was speaking about, but I really enjoyed the knowledge that somebody like him was representing me. Mm-hmm. And I know the man to this day. I saw him about 2 months ago in Amherst, and he'd been a member of Parliament for 31 years. And he's someone I really look up to in life and followed as I grew up. So I guess I wouldn't say I grew up wanting to be an MP, but I knew that politics is something I was probably always going to be involved with.
You know what I've always admired about the eastern part of Canada is that our Atlantic provinces is the sense that your MP is not a politician as much as just a guy or a girl who is one of you, but is going to work in Ottawa to represent your interests. I've always found that there's no guff, certainly, in terms of the relationship between an MP and the constituents. But there's also not really that people aren't intimidated by you as an MP. They're very comfortable coming up and talking to you. Do you find that in your everyday life?
Oh, absolutely. Most people in my riding call me by my first name.
Right.
They say, "Well, Scott did this, and when are you going back to Ottawa, Scott?"
Yeah.
So there's a very close connection with the constituents, and particularly in my riding, where it's most of them are small rural towns. You get to know the community leaders. You get to know the sort of stakeholders in each different economic venue, whether it be tourism, whether it be in fishing, farming, or labor, agriculture. So you know the people, and you see the same people over and over again when you go out, and so that close connection is very valuable.
What about the fact that you are also a public commodity, regardless of the fact that there is that respect between you and your constituent that if they have a problem, they're going to ask you about it no matter where you are, whether you're with your family or friends or not. Do you mind that aspect of your new political life?
Actually, it's not much different than being a principal of a school. I can remember going grocery shopping in Tatham. I was the principal there, and having grandmothers come up and ask about a reading program or an issue with the lunch schedule or something like that. Yeah. So people care about their children, they care about their future, and you really should be accessible and open. So I try to entertain everyone. It probably takes a politician or a school principal 3 times as long to shop in the grocery store as anybody else. But I think it's a worthwhile experience because you get to see people that didn't plan to come out and see you that day, but they do get a chance to see you and just come up and say something to you they probably otherwise wouldn't do. A lot of people aren't willing to make an appointment and go see their MP. So being available and open and around in the community gives them a chance to come up and express their feelings or thoughts to you, whether it be positive or negative. Mm-hmm.
Must get tiring sometimes, though.
Well, the schedule of an MP is fairly it's a trying thing. It's hard to it's a 7-day-a-week job. You're an MP the second you get up, and you're an MP when you go to bed at night. So you have to try to take some time for yourself. That's something that's a goal of mine to work on. I don't do a very good job of that. Tammy's working with me on that, so we're working in that direction. But it's a job that really is more of a passion, and you have to be passionate about what you do to do this job well. And when I look at the other members on all sides of the House, I see a lot of passion to try to make Canada a better place. And I think that we work in the best interests of all our constituents in the country. And I would say that almost every member of Parliament, that whether they agree or disagree with some political bill or some sort of direction you're trying to take a department or a committee, at least they care and they all believe in the best future of this country.
You mentioned Tammy.
Yes.
You just got engaged.
I was engaged a month ago.
That's really exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. When people get to be my age, sometimes they break up and buy a sports car. I sold the sports car and I'm going to get married. So
You're doing it in reverse order.
I'm doing it in reverse, and I've never been happier.
How did you meet?
Well, to tell you the truth, Tammy and I actually attended preschool together.
Oh, my goodness.
So we have pictures of us at the age of 4. and she looks great. I don't look as great when I'm 4. But we've known each other for a long, long time. We attended high school together, and we've kind of found each other late in life. So it's been.
So it was one of those stories where you did kind of. I mean, it's not like she's been patiently hanging on now.
No. She, it's something where I moved back to Nova Scotia from going to school in the States, and we kind of ran into each other again a few years ago, and things have worked out very well, and I'm a fortunate guy, let's put it that way.
That's really terrific. Does she have any idea what she's in for?
Actually, she did. She's actually survived a by-election. She survived the nomination period.
Right.
And she's gone through a provincial election, which I was heavily involved in as a campaign manager. So she has very open eyes of what she's getting into, and to have someone with support like that politically, you couldn't do this job unless you had support at home like that.
Yeah. What about the time away? When you're in Ottawa and you're there, you're in Ottawa a lot.
Right.
How does that work for you guys? Does she?
Well, we talk every night on the phone, so we stay in constant contact. She is, it's trying for both of us. It's a new experience for us, but we're very committed to this. She's part of my team. She works very well with my staff, and so we're all in it together, and that's how we're approaching this. Right. Being an MP is not something I do while she goes and does something else. We are very committed to doing this together, and I don't think it could work unless she did that. Will
she attend events with you? Does she already?
Oh, she, when I'm home in Nova Scotia, she's almost constantly with me. We were in a by-election 2 weeks ago, going door to door for 2 days, and the weekend when I was home, she was with me the whole day long. So having someone that's willing to do that with you, you get to spend time together in politics. So that it's not like I'm always away when I'm home. When I'm home, we're usually together.
Right. And have you set a date? Are you getting married soon, or?
We've set a date for next July 9th.
That's great.
We're very hopeful that Mr. Ignatieff and Mr. Harper won't decide to throw an election in the middle of our election plans, or middle of our wedding plans.
I hope so too.
So we're planning next summer. It's a Saturday, so it also happens to be my birthday. So.
Oh, great! So what a big day.
Well, I probably won't forget our anniversary that way. Anyway, so.
Smart thinking.
Yeah, well, I think it was more smart thinking than her part than mine. But
that part about an election is so important, because I remember my mom telling me that when my dad proposed, that he said, I'd like to get married soon, providing there isn't an election. If there's an election, we'll have to postpone it. And I thought, Lord, that's not romantic.
I can't believe that Joe Clark is going to postpone an election to get married.
I don't think it was his choice at that point. But no, I think that that's the thing about politics, is that your life is, especially in a situation like we're in now with a minority government and a series of minority governments, it's unpredictable. That's got to be trying.
It is. It's difficult to schedule, particularly in my situation where I'm looking to get married. It's something you have to consider. Whereas most people wouldn't be factoring in the schedule of a federal election in their wedding plan. So that's been a bit trying. But we think we're very confident that if an election does happen next spring, it'll be over with by
the time you get
July.
married.
So we're very hopeful.
Okay, fingers crossed.
Yeah. Well, I'll push hard in caucus to make sure they don't interfere with my wedding plans.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure they'll really listen carefully to that.
I'm sure.
So you talked about also going down to the U.S. for school. Mm-hmm. Why did you go down to the U.S.?
Well, I graduated from Acadia, and I was intending to do post-secondary. I was going to become a teacher and an educator. I decided I'd like to go abroad and do something, so I applied at many schools across the United States and some places in Europe. I actually went down and did several interviews at schools in Eastern Seaboard.
Right.
I went to one at Florida State, and Florida State is in Tallahassee, which is the capital city of Florida.
Yeah.
So again, the politics of that attracted me to that particular school. The athletic tradition and the support for athletics at that institution is tremendous, so that's something I wanted to be a part of. And it had been a teacher education college before it became a university.
Right.
So one of their top programs was their School of Education for graduate studies. So the strength of that program also attracted me. So I enjoyed my time down there, and it was again, as a young adult going to a different country. When I set foot in Tallahassee, I didn't know one person there, which is very different for me coming from Nova Scotia,
where you know everyone,
where I knew everybody,
and everyone knows you.
Right. So I really enjoyed that. I still have friends that I met during that time I was down there. I was down there for about a year and a half. And we still Facebook and talk quite regularly. They like to watch my performance in Parliament and critique it. Yes, and it's still a lot of fun talking to people I met while going to school in the United States.
Did you find it to be a really different culture? I mean, from what you were accustomed to and from being a Canadian, did you find it to be different?
Well, coming from a small town, Tallahassee is a fairly large city. The university has about 55,000 students. Coming from Acadia, which probably had about 4,000 at that time, in a small town like Wolfville, Nova Scotia. Yes. So there was a bit of culture shock. It was the first time I'd ever lived in a big city. And just getting around the big city on public transit was something I hadn't experienced before. So it's something that, you get off the wrong bus and then you're stuck and you have to wait for the next one to go back. And I think a lot of people have had that experience moving to big cities from small towns, particularly in the Maritimes, where we end up working Toronto, Vancouver, the oil sands out west. So my experience was not unlike a lot of maritime children going off to big cities to work or go to school.
And what made you want to become specifically an elementary school teacher at the time? And
well, to tell you, I kind of fell into elementary education. All my background experience and training was in secondary. I started my career in British Columbia actually as a high school teacher, and there was an opening came up at a middle school, and I was able to secure a position as a vice principal and an elementary school teacher. So I was teaching fifth grade 50% of the day, and I was being an administrator the other 50% of the day. So I walked in the fifth grade classroom. I had never been in one of my license since I had gone to sixth grade myself. So that was also a good experience in my life. And the students I had in that first fifth grade class are also some that still stay in touch with me.
Now, when you are a principal and you're a teacher, you talked about the rock star effect of being a principal.
Sure.
Were the kids scared of you when you came in to be their teacher?
Not really. I don't have a real intimidating aura about me when I'm teaching. I'm a very collaborative person. I was a leader in the school that had a lot of staff meetings. I'd actually meet with students quite regularly. I try to eat with the students. So, I think if you reach out as an adult, even if you're an authority figure, and you set the tone, you are the adult, but you don't have to do it in an intimidating way, and that wasn't my style.
You were also a coach?
Absolutely.
Are you still a coach?
I'm still a coach.
You're still a coach.
I still work at it as much as I can.
Wow. What are you coaching now?
High school basketball.
Okay.
I'm not there very much, as you know. I'm away quite a bit, so I have assistant coaches that sort of run the program. We do very well. It's a very small town. I think we're probably one of the better teams in any town.
You brought home some championships.
We've won 6 consecutive regional championships, and 2 years ago we won the provincial championship. So I always say we're the best team from any town that doesn't have a stoplight or a Tim Hortons.
You really not have a Tim Hortons?
No, well, in Acadia University they don't have a Tim Hortons yet.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. So then, this decision to run, was it one that took you a lot of time to come to? I mean, we talked a little bit about the fact of how quickly it all happened, but you had been exposed to politics as a kid,
sure.
But you had a successful career. You were respected by your peers and the kids that you taught. Did you always think on some level that you might become an MP if the opportunity presented itself? Or was this really just the kind of thing where there was an issue or something of personal importance to you that you felt you needed to go to?
Well, it was probably something I never ruled out. My family had been working behind the scenes in politics for generations, back to my great-grandfather. So I'm the first one of my family to actually take on public office.
Yeah.
I had an aunt who is actually Liberal, who's a Liberal cabinet minister in Nova Scotia for a while. I very much admire her. She's a tremendous person and still is a huge community volunteer today, Nina Elnor. But for the most part, on the other side of my family, we'd always worked behind the scenes, and that's where I probably was most likely to spend most of my political career, was working at the party level. But the stars kind of aligned, and it's something I always had in the back of my head. It's something that I thought if I had the time my family situation permitted, and it did. And the situation came with Bill retiring in April, and we had a particular situation in our riding. So I had a good chance to win the election. I knew that. I had built a public profile in supporting Bill as an independent candidate.
Right.
So we knew that I had a good chance to win the campaign. So I was able to talk to my family and decide to take the opportunity and try to do what I could to support my riding.
Having, and this isn't meant to be political, but Bill Casey had been in a situation where he was sitting as an independent, and you had been president of his riding association, and then you run for his seat. Was there any, did you have any nerves coming into Ottawa, coming after a situation that had been a little tense with the party you currently represent, or was that just water under the bridge?
Well, from my point of view, it was water under the bridge. Because of my background in politics, I knew a lot of the MPs and cabinet ministers and their staff already, so I knew that would serve me well. I've worked very hard to make sure that people understand that I am part of the team. I've always been a strong supporter of the party. The situation that happened in our riding was very unusual and peculiar. Our riding association stood strongly behind me, as did the provincial party and the federal party in Nova Scotia. And of course, having Peter MacKay and I having such a long relationship, and him as the regional minister, that was a big help. Doesn't hurt. So we were, I think that most people consider me a very strong party person and loyal conservative. So I wasn't as concerned about that as if someone had come from maybe a lesser background than I did.
What book is on your bedside table, if any?
Well, I'm reading a book by Rudolph Giuliani called Leadership.
Okay.
Of course, 9/11 is probably the most fateful day in this century for sure, and maybe several decades before that. And so his leadership during that particular day is something that always impressed me, and I think he's a very interesting gentleman. So that's what I'm reading right now. I don't read as much as I should in this job for my own pleasure or for my own professional development like I did when I was principal, because we do so much reading in our schedule. So,
sure.
But I am plugging my way through it, and it's a very entertaining book.
What's the last movie you saw?
Well, I saw The Blind Side last Friday night on video with Tammy, and you and I talked about this in our pre-interview meeting.
Do you find that you guys do that to relax? You stay home, you watch a movie, you just kind of...
That's something I like to do. And Tammy's more of a person that's energetic out there doing things 24 hours a day. But I'm slowly beating my way through that, and she's now willing to sit down and watch a whole television show or a whole movie with me if I have a chance.
I think you have your work cut out for you.
I do.
If moving forward, what do you want people to look at you and think, hey, that's what Scott Armstrong came to Ottawa to do, or he was a good MP because of this?
Well, one of the most troubling things, and I saw it as a small town principal, probably more than the average person in society, is poverty. And we have children going to school that aren't fed properly. We have single parents trying to raise 2 and 3 children. We have foster children that really have no homes or no support. Currently in Cumberland-Colchester-Musquodoboit Valley, our average family income is $55,000 a year, which sits 285th out of 308 ridings in this country.
Wow.
And the biggest issue in my riding, unquestionably, is jobs, because if we can bring jobs and employment to the area, that's going to raise that. And we've had very good leadership, and from Bob Coates through Bill Casey, basically since 1957. And we're lucky to have that much employment in my ridings. Other ridings that are worse off in this country. But if I can make one difference when I leave, it's going to be increasing the employment, the economic activity in a small rural part of our country, and make it a place where children can see a future for themselves, that they may settle down and continue to live there. They won't have to go to the oil sands. They won't have to go to Halifax or Toronto. They will actually be able to live at home and raise their children and build our small communities. And that's why I'm in Ottawa. That's why I'm willing to spend a lot of time up here, because I'm trying to make things better for the people back home.
I really appreciate you taking the time to be here today. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you, Catherine. I appreciate the opportunity.